Alright YouTube, it's been a while. Here we see the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes beating Roman Reigns at WrestleMania for the undisputed WWE title, and allegedly finishing the story. Now, what if I told you that in terms of kayfabe, not only is this an extreme exaggeration, but behind the scenes, this is also symptomatic of a larger problem that WWE keeps having, and it's one that we as fans only slightly bring up, even though we should be talking about it a whole lot more and in greater depth. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do, because today, Dave knows that finishing the story was a complete and total utter lie. Alright, let's go back to the beginning. Here's Cody Rhodes cutting the best non-AEW promo for the year, where he proclaimed that he was going to finish the story by winning the title that Dusty Rhodes didn't win, all due to a dusty finish in Madison Square Garden. Now, somewhere along the way, this morphed into Cody Rhodes not just winning the WWE Championship, but winning it off of Roman Reigns specifically, and not at the Garden, but instead at WrestleMania, which he eventually did at WrestleMania Extra Large. Because on top of all that, as we look at the scene right now in WWE, we do have something of a mixed bag. Because now we have something of a problem that fans talk about all the time, and it's one that we wouldn't have had if The Rock won. And it's the issue that fans are always turning on babyface champions. But first, let's stop to really take a look at the current situation, because now we have Cody Rhodes teaming up with Roman Reigns to take on that of the Bloodline. And sure, Cody did win the WWE title, but the bigger problem here is that, well, Cody really never moved on from anything having to do with the Tribal Chief. Now, one move that WWE did that I've been highly critical of is that they put him in a feud with Solo Sikoa for SummerSlam's main event, something that I think Solo just isn't ready for and probably would never be. But even before this, the idea of Cody Rhodes going against the Bloodline had already been set, as they did so at Money in the Bank. But I get it, Solo going against Cody and forming a new Bloodline was the perfect vehicle for Roman Reigns to come back. And since nobody really likes Solo all that much, it does make things easier for Roman Reigns to get that babyface reaction once he does come back. So in this case, being unlikable is the perfect thing for Solo to have. However, that doesn't justify why this new fake Bloodline won against Cody the pay-per-view before. And it also doesn't justify the feud continuing further after SummerSlam. But forgetting about how bad Solo is, let's focus on Cody Rhodes. And yes, let's also talk about The Rock, as there were a lot of fans out there who said that The Rock shouldn't dethrone Roman because it does nothing to elevate younger talent, and that Cody was easily the better choice. But to that I ask, has that actually happened? Because, like it or not, Roman Reigns is the top guy of WWE. He's their major star. And with Cody Rhodes not being able to move beyond the Bloodline, it just goes to show that, well, Roman is still the top dog. The American Nightmare didn't take his place. He's just been keeping the seat warm. Oh, and real quick, I do want to say that I have no problem with the idea of Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns teaming up, or Roman turning babyface, as this is a storyline I think had to happen, and I also think it's happening at the right time. My only issue is, why hasn't Cody done anything else in the meantime? If Cody Rhodes were to drop the belt right now, the thing we would all remember about his title run would be all his work that he did with the Bloodline, as this has been the only real storyline he's been given. I mean, sure, AJ Styles faking retirement, but why do they hate each other? They never really gave us a reason to believe it or to buy it, and you know what? I still don't. The matches were good though. Diving deeper, when we start looking at the ratings for SmackDown, we'll see that Roman's numbers from last year are higher than Cody's. So now, what's the deal with that? As it does seem like WWE fans only like their babyfaces when they're on the chase, but not when they're champs. Some of you might be surprised to hear this, but I do have some praise for AEW, as this is a phenomenon that seems to only happen in WWE, and it doesn't really affect All Elite Wrestling, as their babyface champions like Jon Moxley tend to be well received with their audiences, even when they have long title reigns. Now sure, a lot of the big WWE fans out there will justify this by saying that AEW fans are just jaded and bitter and they love just being contrarian for no reason. So naturally they're gonna like the babyfaces in AEW because that represents the counter WWE, and they're gonna hate the faces of World Wrestling Entertainment, like John Cena or babyface Roman Reigns, because they just want to be cool and go against the grain. Now that might be true, but allow me to remind everyone that AEW fans are just a fraction of what the WWE audience has. I mean, let's look at Dynamite's viewers. they have about a third and sometimes even a quarter of the audience that SmackDown has. And fine, they can be really loud on the internet, but the truth is they don't make up that much of the fan base, even though if you look at the last week of August and the first week of September that I just showed you, you'll see that the difference between those numbers is about the same as Dynamite's audience. But I just think that's a really weird coincidence because correlation doesn't always equal causation. And while we're at it, let's give another swift kick to tribalism right now and stop pretending like AEW fans and WWE fans are always two different people, as there is a whole heck of a lot of crossover. Because while there might be a lot of casual mainstream WWE fans who have never heard of All Elite Wrestling, let's be real, every single AEW fan knows, even if they're not watching, they know what WWE is. And so, what is often the case when fans on the internet claim that fans on the internet are turning on someone, it's really not so much the case, no matter how enraged the complaining on the internet might be. However, that doesn't mean that there isn't still a little bit of truth behind it, as the audience drop-off, while not entirely huge, is still significant enough to make you ask a couple of questions. But those numbers aren't everything, as there is merch sales, and Cody Rhodes finds himself at the top of the list. Furthermore, we should also remember that there are numbers to look at outside of television ratings, such as audience attendance, and when we look at those figures for the same pay-per-views this year as last year's, we'll see that Cody draws a better box office, with the exception of Backlash, but it should be noted that Roman Reigns wasn't actually at last year's Backlash, however, Cody was. Now the reason why I'm talking about all these numbers is, as Cody Rhodes put it in the Pivot podcast, the number one thing I learned, you really have to know how many tickets are we selling? How many shirts are we moving? You can't be emotionally attached to this, as whether you like it or not, WWE is a business, and how well you do will determine how well you do. And Cody Rhodes is doing really great. Not too shabby for the babyface that was considered undesirable in All Elite Wrestling before he left. So to make this clear, I'm not, nor have I ever been, saying that the American Nightmare is a lost cause. And I'm not saying that this is a simple black or white issue. But what I am saying is that in certain sectors, Cody Rhodes is not doing as well as he could be, and he's definitely not taking the spot of Roman Reigns, at least not yet. And I'm also saying that I think it would really help Cody Rhodes if he was given a major storyline just like Roman Reigns had as champion, because from day one, it was very clear that this whole thing with Roman Reigns' heel turn was all about family, all about the Usos, all about the Anoa'i family. Now, I have talked about this in previous videos, but I always felt that title reigns should have a complete storyline in and of themselves, and little feuds in between should have their own individual stories. And Cody never got that, and looks like they never really even tried, because even though he may have the belt, the reality is WWE still has Roman on the brain. They had 3 months to tell any kind of story that they wanted with Cody, and all they wanted to do was just to give him good matches, but with no substance, no emotional stakes, nothing to keep their audiences glued to the television. And that's not a slight on him or AJ Styles. And so if WWE really wanted to have their fans committed to the product and to turn their show into must-see TV, they should have crafted a plot that was so compelling that fans just had to see what happened next for Cody, instead of having him claim that he's finishing his father's story while really serving as a mere background player for the original Tribal Chiefs feud with the new bloodline. As not only is the story not finished, but it was never really Cody's story to begin with, as all roads really lead to Roman. Patreon shout out to Dakari Garment, who does not have his doctorate in Thugonomics, but he is working on his master's. Mr. J, who could block the RKO faster than a car because he can dodge Viper. Ron Hawthorne, who will beat your serpent sick because he'll ill ya and knock your dragon off. And Mangy Stray, who somehow managed to go 1-on-2 with the Great One. As well as to the rated R superstar Harry Flynn, and a Mr. who is both wonderful and perfect, the reflection of perfection, as well as the rest of my amazing Patreon supporters. Well, there you go, why finishing the story was a complete and total crock, and why WWE Babyface Champions have such a hard time. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed to the Thinking Fans channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm glad to be back, and as always, Dave knows.